I really did want to enjoy Creature Commandos so bad, man. When I saw the first look for Creature Commandos, plus also the first episode, I was kind of hyped up, especially with how consistent James Gunn has been with DC, which has given me faith for the new DCU. But I'm not gonna lie, the more I think about the finale for that show, the more I kind of realize how flawed Creature Commandos really is. I was vibing with the animation, and I like literally all of the characters. But in hindsight, that 7 episode time frame combined with the twist that I decided to do with Princess Yolana just kind of made me like just groan by the end of it. And I'm not really the most hyped for season 2. Spoilers for Creature Commandos, but I'm assuming you're here anyway because you want it. So, don't delude yourself, you little gremlins. Like I said before, I really enjoy most of the animation and pretty much all of the characters from Creature Commandos. I also do think that the 7 episode time frame and just the way the season was overall structured just made about half of the cast kind of pointless and just written off very unsatisfyingly. Rick Flag Sr. pretty much gets written off after episode 5, and I'm very curious what his relationship with the Commandos are even going to be by the second season, given the fact that they essentially did the thing that he didn't want them to do for the entire season, which is a shame because I very much like his character. Frankenstein could have been written out of the entire season and nothing would change. The Shamik Moore wannabe is very funny to me, especially with David Harbour's performance, but he literally does nothing throughout the entire story and really just gives a lot of background for the bride, who's arguably the second deuteragonist of the entire series. And oh god, Nina. Poor sweet Nina. Look, I understand kind of what they were trying to go for with this character, but like Nina was originally designed to kind of be like the like the moral compass of the team, but it doesn't really work when her only main interactions are with GI Robot, who gets blown up by episode 3, and also the bride, who again is deuteragonist. And her kind of opening up the bride kind of just leads to her convincing Nina to go on a suicide run anyway. So her dying kind of just feels off because she also doesn't do anything. This is the only time where she's actually relevant. You could argue again that, like, yes, her death being pointless is kind of the point. But also, too, I kind of feel like with James Gunn being so renowned for doing unknown characters and making sure everyone gets a role, Nina just kind of suffers a lot. Especially because of, like, her backstory being revealed pretty much the same day that this all happened. Don't worry, though. I don't think the Commandos got wasted, too. I also think Cersei did, too. God, it would have been so cool for, like, a Wonder Woman villain for a change to actually be, like, the main villain. But she gets defeated in episode 3 and basically becomes a plot device for the rest of the season. And while, yes, I understand James Gunn apparently made a statement saying that her main weakness is, count 'em, she must need the use of her hands in order to do any type of spells, even though there's nothing in the animation to convey she needed her hands, and just makes me wonder why she's even a big threat in the world of the DCU, where her main hero that she fights against would be able to bound her hands with a lasso of truth. But I probably wouldn't be as, like, annoyed about this whole thing if I didn't also have to deal with Princess Yelena. But I probably wouldn't be as mad about the way she gets taken out if it weren't for fucking Princess Yelena getting to be the main antagonist. It's already hard to stretch my disbelief that she somehow would rule the world in Dark Alternate Future. By the way, we never understand why she wants to rule the world. Never get that, like, whole thing explained. Fine, fuck it. The real questions I have are essentially, why does she have connections with supervillains? And also, 2, her plan essentially completely falls apart when you realize that the 2 factors that pretty much prevent her from immediately dying within the narrative, right, are 2 things. 1, she needs to be able to have Rick Flag Sr. be so smitten with her that he would try to find a way to make sure she doesn't get absolutely got by the military from the US. And also, 2, the Creature Commandos also need to be taken out by her army. Keep in mind, the Commandos took out Cersei in the first place, the same Cersei that they needed help to beat in the first place, the same Cersei that had the sons of Themyscira that, effectively speaking, couldn't even be beat by the Pokosclovia like military to begin with. And you mean to trying to convince me here that the Commandos will be less of a threat and less of a problem than Cersei? And Yelena still wants to act like her like life isn't in danger? That's such bullshit. And again, regardless of how good of a man Rick Flag is, it's just inherently very weird to just play that after a couple of days of knowing him, that he would be able to portray his entire US government. But all right, sure. Frankly speaking, if they really wanted to just like have this plot, I don't understand why they couldn't have just put the entire season within Pokosclovia in the first place. Legitimately, you do not need to change much of the story in order to have this work. Still have Cersei get beaten by the Commandos, but instead of having her instantly car off to Bel Rev, you have the princess lock her up in her dungeon because she is under Pokosclovian territory, and as such, she has like the ability to do that. Also, make up some bullshit of how she's the princess, but she's really the queen now because Yolanda could have just made some whole thing about how she killed the queen in the chaos of like the attack. Fine, right? Then after Yolanda secures Cersei, so that way, you can make also some bullshit about how she needs Cersei in order to make sure their visions and future becomes true. Have Clayface start to systematically take out the Commandos when their guard is down because Yolanda is showering them with like gifts and admiration and riches, right? She would have already been around with these people for a couple of days and getting like a good idea of their psychological profiles, and then you could just have Clayface mimic that and then start to actually like take them out one by one. Of course, maybe have the Commandos escape, and then from there Frankenstein could roll in. You can maybe make up some like fun story about how Frankenstein would team up with Yelena because if they can get the Commandos, then he can get the bride. But long story short, like that still all happens. And then from there, we have episode 6 again, but the Commandos are now a lot more together, and so they can get like some more like screen time and more of a dynamic can be built up. Have Yelena also slander the Commandos too, treat them like common criminals, and actually be worried about her own future. Then from there, everything else can pretty much stay the same. Maybe give Yelena like more of a motivation, and then something is great. I legit just don't know whether or not like it was a first draft and you couldn't really like, shift things around. I mean, James Gunn himself seems proud of it, but he may also have to because, DCU and all that stuff. But I don't know. I hope Commandos can like pull me in again by season 2 because I really do enjoy the show and I think it has a lot of potential for DCU to explore some new avenues that obviously live action can't. But I also do hope that there is more time given to all these characters in the future. Because of the streaming model, I just don't think that 7-episode, 22-minute shows, especially with an ensemble cast, are just going to work, especially nowadays. Still, though, I would like to know your thoughts. What did you think of Creature Commandos? And leave some thoughts down below.